Today I have to discuss the role of ultrasound in evaluating a mass in the female pelvis. We all know that we can approach the female pelvic by two routes. One is transabdominal and the second is the endovaginal ultrasounds. In the transabdominal we use both longitudinal as well as the transverse image, and we need sufficiently adequately full bladder. You can see here, this is the adequately full bladder. It should neither be over-distended nor inadequate. Whereas the second approach is the endovaginal, where full bladder is not required. Probe is inserted into the cervix, and we can see the detailed evaluations of the pelvic masses. And for endovaginal sonography, always we require a prior transabdominal ultrasound examinations. So whenever a pelvic mass is detected at ultrasounds, we have to see where from it is arising. We have to see the primary site or the origin of the lesions, and we have to decide whether the lesion is intrauterine or extrauterine. And an attempt is made to differentiate between the benign and the malignant nature of the mass as well. Pelvic masses, for the purpose of study, we can divide into uterine and the adnexal masses. Adnexa means adjacent to the uterus, whether it is from the ovary or the extra-ovarian aspects we will just discuss. The uterine masses, the commonest, they are the solid masses, but we can encounter sometimes cystic masses as well, like hematometrocarpus and the Dermoid cysts, and the solid masses may either be benign or the malignant masses. The Dermoid cysts, that is the retention cysts due to chronic inflammations. The inflammation blocks the ducts of the cervical glands, and the retention cysts form, which we can see as a cystic area within the cervix, both on routine transabdominal as well as on the endovaginal ultrasonographic examination. Hematometrocarpus is another cystic lesion which we can see in the uterus following the age of menses. If there is obstruction of the genital tract, that result in the accumulation of the menstrual blood in the vagina and uterus, and that is labeled as the hematometrocarpus. If it is only limited to the vaginal canal, this is labeled as the hematocarpus, and when it extends into the uterine cavity, as you can see here in this picture, this is the longitudinal scan, this is the accumulated blood, this is the transverse scan, and the cranial echoes as well are visible. So this is a hematometrocarpus. The etiology most of the time is the imperforate hymen, but it may be due to sometime vaginal atresia, vaginal septum, or sometimes the rudimentary uterine wall. The solid uterine masses, they include the myometrial masses as fibroids or sometimes adenomyosis as will be seen, and the endometrial masses like benign endometrial hyperplasia, carcinoma, or polyps. The fibroids, they are the commonest smooth muscle cell tumors, and at ultrasound they appear as well demarcated hypoechoic lesions there, and they always distort the uterine anatomy. Either the outer walls they are distorted or they push the endometrium to one side. So well demarcated hypoechoic mass, if you see in the myometrium, that is the fibroid of the uterus, and depending upon its size, they are either subserosal when the myometrium, when the one side of the fibroids is surrounded by serosa, and interstitials when all of the sides they are surrounded by myometrium, submucosal when it is just like close to the mucosa, and sometimes it is a pedunculated fibroid where we can see a stem of the fibroid as well. Here, as you can see in this picture, is a small subserosal fibroid. Here is the myometrium and this is the serosa. A large subserosal fibroid, serosa, and the myometrium. Hypoechoic mass just close to the serosa is the subserosal fibroid. And this is the submucosal on one side of the fibroid is the mucosa, and this is the transabdominal, and this is the endovaginal ultrasound examination of the submucosal fibroid. Then it may be interstitials surrounded by the myometrium on all its sides. And then it may be the pedunculated when there is a peduncular stem between the uterus and the mass. That is the pedunculated fibroid. Endometrial mass or thick endometrium, if it is uniformly thickened, most likely it is benign endometrial hyperplasia. If there is focal or localized thickening, that is probably an endometrial polyp. And if the thickening is heterogeneous with irregular contours, then we may think of the endometrial CA. I can see here, this is the diffuse thickening with few cystic areas in between. This is the localized thickening, this is the endometrial polyp. Another slide of the diffuse thickening, that's the benign endometrial hyperplasia, and this is the endometrial polyp. So if it is diffuse, having few tiny cystic areas, it is benign endometrial hyperplasia, and if it is localized or focal thickening, that most likely is an endometrial polyps. And whenever the thickening is there and the margin, they are irregular, penetrating into the adjacent myometrial tissue, there is loss of myometrial endometrial interface, most likely it is endometrial malignancy, endometrial carcinoma, and it is hypervascular on the Doppler as well. Then these are about the uterine masses. Then the adnexal masses may be ovarian or extra-ovarians. The ovarian are the commonest. The extra-ovarian mean they are either rising from the fallopian tubes, from the round or the broad ligaments. And sometimes there are non-gynecological. Gynecological extra-ovarian masses, they include the hydrosalpinx, ectopic pregnancy, and endometrioma. Non-gynecologicals may be related to the gut, as the dilated bowel loops or mesenteric cysts, or they may be related to some renal systems as pelvic kidney, dilated uterus, bladder diverticuli, and vascular as pelvic varices and pelvic lymph nodes may also present as a pelvic mass. And the hydrosalpinx is the dilatation of the fallopian tube. There is either C or S-shaped dilated tubules which show thickened longitudinal folds as mural nodules. Irregularity of the walls and septa may be seen, which are the incomplete separations, and this is the hydrosalpinx. Another picture is the transabdominal ultrasound, a wide-shaped cystic area, and this is the endovaginal where you can see the incomplete separation. So this is a case of hydrosalpinx. Then ectopic pregnancy, as Dr. already mentions, there is either uterine finding, that is the disvisualization of the endometrium. There may be the peritoneal finding, that the free fluid in the anterior as well as the posterior cul-de-sac. And at the next are these thick wall cystic area with visible embryo. Sometimes embryo may not be visible. And this is the endovaginal thickening of the endometrium, adnexal cystic mass, thick wall, and embryo with cardiac activity as well as visible. So this is the ectopic pregnancy. So while dealing the adnexal mass, you should keep in mind the ectopic pregnancy as well. The pelvic kidney, sometimes ectopically placed kidney in the pelvis that comes close to the uterus and looks like a pelvic mass. So should be kept in mind that there may be a pelvic kidney. Bladder divertically, the outpocketing of the bladder walls, and they looks like a cyst within the pelvis, but we have to see the communication within the bladder. If there is communication within the urinary bladder, that is a diverticulum and not a pelvic cyst. Mesenteric cyst is a benign proliferation of the ectopically placed lymphatics in the mesentery that lack communication within the remainder of the lymphatic system, so get dilated, and that produce pain in the lower abdomen and may looks like an adnexal cystic mass. So these extra gynecological causes should also be kept in mind while dealing with the cystic area of the adnexal regions. The commonest, they are the ovarian masses, which may either be the cystic or solid. Cystic are more common, and cyst may be simple or complex, and whenever you see a complex cyst, it may either be non-neoplastic or neoplastic. Solid as well are seen, but they are less common, and they may be benign or the malignant. We will see in the various slides how to differentiate. So whenever you see a solid ovarian mass, sonographically a pedunculated leiomyoma must be excluded, because pedunculated fibroid looks like an adnexal mass. Color Doppler can be utilized in an attempt to find the stalk or continuity of the uterus and the adnexal mass. So a pedunculated fibroid must always be looked for whenever you see a solid adnexal mass. Another picture of the pedunculated fibroid. And solid ovarian masses, most likely they are malignant. However, few benign tumors like fibroma may as well be visible. And whenever you see a benign ovarian, benign solid mass, In the adnexal region, you have to see the contour of the mass, if they are smooth, well defined, and the vascularity is seen only at the periphery, that is most likely a benign solid malignant mass. As you can see here in this picture, vascularity is peripherally and the mass is smooth outline, so it is a benign malignant mass. The malignant tumors appear as a large lobulated solid mass with central vascularity. And if they are bilateral, then we have to keep in mind the metastatic ovarian tumors as well. Another case of the solid ovarian mass with central vascularity, most likely it is a malignant mass. The cyst, ovarian cysts, they are the commonest, and we divide into the simple ovarian cysts, which may be either follicular cyst, corpus luteal or theca luteal cyst, and the complex ovarian cyst, which may either be hemorrhagic, which are non-neoplastic, peritoneal inclusion or endometrioma, and few neoplastic cysts as well as seen, which may be benign as cystic teratoma, or it may be a malignant cyst adenocarcinoma. When we see that a cyst is simple, when we see a cystic area which is well-defined walls, it is totally anechoic, no internal echoes are seen, and there is post-enhancement. This is a simple ovarian cyst. And a persistent, simple, non-functioning cyst less than 5 centimeters is almost always benign, but follow-up should be there, whether it increases on follow-up or not. Follicular cyst, a follicular cyst develops when fluid in one of the non-dominant follicle is not resolved, or if it is a dominant follicle that does not involve, then that forms a follicular cyst. And it is always more than 3 centimeters. Whenever you see a cystic area in the ovary and that is 3 centimeters less than that, that is a follicle within the ovary, that is not cyst. We say cyst whenever it is more than 3 centimeters in size. Corpus luteal cyst is due to the failure of the corpus luteum to regress or from excessive bleeding into the corpus luteum, and characteristic ring of fire may be seen on the Doppler while evaluating a corpus luteal cyst. Sometimes we see the corpus luteum cyst associated with pregnancy because the corpus luteum continues as a corpus luteum pregnancy, which may become enlarged and cystic, and most of the time it gets disappeared by the 16 weeks of the pregnancy. So what a complex cyst is, a cyst with internal echoes or separation is labeled as a complex cyst. This is a cystic area, post-enhancement is there, but the walls may be irregular and you see the internal echoes or solid components. That is a complex ovarian cyst. And complex may be non-neoplastic or neoplastic. Non-neoplastic are theca luteal cysts, which are associated with a high level of the human chorionic gonadotrophin. Most of the time these are bilateral, multiple, and the large cystic areas. And most of the time these are associated with the gestational trophoblast disease, that is molar pregnancy, and can sometimes be seen within the ovarian hyperstimulation. When the ovulation induction therapy is given, the both ovaries may become hyperstimulated and produce the multiple cystic area. It's the case of the molar pregnancy with bilateral theca luteal cyst. And here is the hyperstimulation, and there are bilateral cysts in cysts. Then another complex cyst is the hemorrhagic cyst. An acute hemorrhagic cyst is usually hyperechoic, and you can see this acute bleed within the cystic area. This is hyperechoic, and as clot retracts, there is multiple interdigitation septations, and as the clot retracts more, there is a fluid level between the clot and the fluid components as well. Acute bleed, which is echogenics, and as it clot dissolves, there is fibrinous echoes inside. And peritoneal inclusion cysts are seen mostly with history of abdominal surgery, PID, trauma, or endometriosis, and ovaries being a source of peritoneal fluid in women may get entrapped within the fluid, and adhesions, they are seen, and at ultrasound we see the ovaries displaced on one side or the other, and we see the multiple adhesion, and these are the peritoneal inclusion cysts. Then endometriosis is the ectopically placed endometrium, and it may be diffuse or localized. When it is localized, it produces the endometrioma, that is an anechoic area with grainy echoes inside. Bilateral, most of the time it is bilateral. Then benign Ovarian cyst, most common is the cystic teratoma, which is also labeled as the dermoid, and it is a derivative of the ectoderm, mesoderm, and endoderm layers. And at sonographically, they are predominantly cystic with mural nodules, that is the dermoid plug inside, and dermoid plug appears as echogenic substance, and sometimes there is a few highly echogenic foci with shadow behind may be arising from the bone or teeth. So we have to recognize the dermoid cyst at sonographic sign. There is tip of iceberg signs. The tip is because of the calcified foci, and the shadowing behind is labeled as the tip of the iceberg signs. The dermoid mesh, multiple linear or dots of the echogenic foci may be seen within this cystic area, and this is a dermoid mesh. A few slides regarding to differentiate whether a cyst is benign or malignant. First thing is to see the size. Whenever the size is less than 5 centimeter, it is considered as benign, and if it is more than 5 centimeter, we have to have a follow-up to rule out the malignancy within the cystic areas. And then septations, if the septa they are thin and avascular, that is benign. If they are thick and vascular, that is a malignant cystic lesions. If you see the papillary projection, that is papillary outgrowth from the walls of the cystic area, and these protrude more than 3 millimeter, and they are multiple, that is malignant. If they protrude less than 3 millimeter, that is a benign. And then focal solid component. If you see a solid area that is vascular, that is definitely a sign of the malignant ovarian cyst. This is a hemorrhagic cyst with focal solid area, but this is non-vascular. So focal solid area which is vascular means it's a malignant ovarian cyst. Follow-up should be done at 6 to 12 weeks. If the cysts they are benign, they regress. If they are malignant, they will not regress. On the Dopplers, we have to see the diastolic flow. If the diastolic flow is high and the RI or PI is less than, that is a malignant ovarian cyst. So to sum up, if the size is less than 5 centimeter, it is a benign. More than 5, it is malignant. If septation, they are thin and avascular, that is benign. If they are thick and vascular, malignant. Papillary projections, if they are present, then and more than 3 centimeter, that is malignant. If they are absent, that is benign. Focal solid component, definitely if they are present and are vascular, that is a malignant. And on follow-up, if the cyst is slow growing and resolve, that is benign. If it is rapid growing, that is a malignant. And Doppler, I have shown you, if there is peripheral flow, it is benign. If it is central flow, it is malignant. And if resistive index or PI is less than it is benign. And if it is more than 0.4 or 1, that is the malignant ovarian cyst. And with that, thank you very much.